Welcome to this episode of Let's Be Civil. For this episode of Let's Be Civil, I'm speaking with Rebecca Davio. Rebecca Davio is an associate professor of practice in the geography department and director of the Institute for Government Innovation at Texas State University. She has 25 years experience implementing new approaches and service-oriented cultures in Texas state government. Prior to joining Texas State University, Rebecca worked for the Texas Department of Transportation. Okay, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Let's Be Civil. And I have Rebecca here with me this afternoon. Looks like palm trees in the background. Before we came on, I heard birds chirping and things like that. So I'm expecting somewhere along the line for maybe like a margarita to pop up from off screen. So is that the plan, or is that after we're done? They're going to go to that.
That's after we're done. But what a marvelous idea. I decided, the saying is when life gives you lemons, make lemonade.
Yep.
And so I'm working from home and decided, you know what? I don't have to sit in my office to record this conversation. I'm going to go out on the back porch and enjoy my favorite place to be.
Yep. Excellent. So do you look out onto anything on your property, or do you look out to a fence, or what's the view like?
Well, I definitely do have a fence and neighbors nearby, but I've also got a nice clump of trees and a variety of bird feeders. So it's really wonderful. You can hear the birds in the background, as you said, and at night I got all the night creatures, cicadas and frogs and things. So it's really a very restful place to be.
So I can do without the frogs, as anybody that really knows me knows that, man, I cannot stand frogs. Can't toads, any hoppy thing like that just freaks me out. So it's not spiders for me, or, well, snakes kind of are in that category too. But
yeah, I don't like snakes.
They get me. So you made one comment that I'm going to follow up on is you're kind of there in the environment, and that's really a big part of who you are, right? I mean, going to your favorite place being sort of semi out in the environment, because it is a little bit warm, so it'd be different if it was a different time of year. You could sit outside. But environmental issues and the environment's a big part of who you are.
That's right. It has been for virtually my entire life. My dad was a fireman, so he had every other day off. So I got to hang out with him, and we worked in the garden. We'd go to the nurseries. He took me to a sewage treatment plant when I was little. And way back when I had to figure out what I wanted to do at school and start graduate school, it was like, well, those experiences out in the environment. We had an aluminum car cover, roof over our carport. And so we would go out and listen to the rain. And those were just very profound experiences for me. And ended up working at TxDOT in the alternative fuel vehicle program, and then really did some more soul searching and decided that I wanted to do recycling, that was something that made a lot of sense to me. So I became TxDOT's recycling manager and got to use all kinds of recycled materials in road construction and do research about that, what materials were good. And that's actually the thing that led me to you and getting to do this interview. So
yeah,
it was a great experience.
No, go ahead. You can talk about it more.
Well, I mean, it was just fabulous. It was an opportunity to do very analytical things. I had to interact with TxDOT engineers and researchers engineering researchers from universities all over the state. But I also got to be very creative and come up with games and pledges and all kinds of things to try and encourage people to participate, because it wasn't going to be me that was going to make TxDOT's recycling program a success. It was getting everybody else in the department to be excited and feel like that was something they were part of. So it was a great opportunity to use both sides of my brain.
So one of the things I'm picking up is you had the opportunity to be innovative in the kind of stuff you developed, and it was really, you had the freedom, the flexibility to try different things.
Absolutely. I have been blessed with that really in so many parts of my career, to just, it's like, here, go do this. And in many instances, I even sort of got to define what it was that I was doing and what that meant, what we were working on. And that is incredibly satisfying. I tell people that I've gotten to be an entrepreneur in state government, which is
not right.
a different kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah, usually it's
so I got the benefits of steady paycheck.
Entrepreneurs over here, and they don't go like this. And
exactly, but I got to have them go like this.
Yeah.
And it was really, had been blessed with good bosses that just seemed to trust me and let me go and go do stuff. And so that was really very, very satisfying to me.
Well, let's go back to being a kid and then come back to where we are today. So you have all these experiences with your dad. Did that have any impact on things that you did at high school? Did they have any kind of activities at high school that allowed you to be involved sort of in environmental related things? Did they have any like a science club or anything like that you got involved in as a consequence of the experiences that you'd had, or high school wasn't anything in that from an environmental perspective?
You know, I took science classes, John, but I don't think I was in any science club. And so I did honor society and stuff like that, but
so at that time,
didn't actually do science club.
Right.
And my undergraduate degree didn't have anything to do with science, but
So
it was really.
So where did it kick in for you? When did you have this sort of, hey, I want to get involved more, even though, you know, it was steps to get to where you are now, but I mean, so not, you know, childhood experiences, sort of dormant, you know, high school, college, and then you're working and or something, you know, you have something happens. So where do you recall the sort of directional change or this becoming a bigger part of what you did?
Well, I think it may have happened a couple of different times, quite honestly. It's like when I finished my undergraduate degree, I decided, oh, I'm really glad I finished that degree, but I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in that field. And so then I applied to go to graduate school, and you had to write something about like what you want to do. And it was really this time of soul searching. Okay. That it was like, well, what do I want to do? And I sort of came back to, oh yeah, you know, I loved going with my dad to all these different places. We went to compost facilities and doing the experiments that we had different kinds of, you know, 6 different tomato plants and gave them different amounts of water and different amount of fertilizer and measured the results. And, you know, my dad was teaching me to be a scientist and love data. And so that sort of came back around in graduate school, and I did a lot of work in my master's program in the environmental field, and then like took a job because I needed a job. And it's like, okay, it wasn't in the environmental field, but I was still using other things that I'd learned And so then, that changed again. So I worked a while not in the environmental field. That changed again, came back and said, what do I like to do? What do I want to do? And once again, came back to this environmental field. And so I've gone away and come back and gone away and come back and
Sure.
taken a very, very circuitous route throughout my career,
Right.
a wonderfully satisfying circuitous route. But,
Sure.
environmental stuff has been there a lot.
Well,
So
I think one of the things that's interesting is this sort of back and forth pattern, that you were involved and then not and involved and these moments of if you want to say take a hard look at yourself, or even if it's not a hard one, just sort of where do I want to go and what do I want to do with the next phase of my life. And I mean, I chime in a little bit about myself every now and again through these podcasts. But I mean, this podcast is kind of one of those things. I was outside talking to my wife when I was working in the yard, and I remembered one of the pictures. There's a picture in the intro to the podcast that I took in like 1980 something. And to think that when I stood there and took that photo, that in 2020, it would be part of something called a podcast. It's like crazy, right? But
yeah,
things happen, and you take a moment and like I'd mentioned to you, the thought to do something like this had been on my mind. And so you find yourself making a change because you sit there and you say, what do I want to do with my life from this point forward? Even if you're 20, you're 20 years old, what do I want to do for the next umpteen years? When you're 30 or 40, you still, you look back at yourself and say, do I still want to be doing this? And so tell me about this shift within the DOT, because it isn't what you would call anything typical that you would get involved in. This is the move to the being recycling. It's an not the ordinary kind of, hey, go off and be innovative and don't worry, we're not looking over your shoulder or anything like that. What was that like?
well, I tell my students about this because for me it was sort of a profound experience. And so I was working in the alternative fuel vehicle business within TxDOT. So I was writing video scripts and going out and doing training for all the mechanics at TxDOT who were going to have to start working on propane and CNG fueled vehicles and just get them used to the idea. And I really sort of, again, was doing some reflection and said, I don't want to be doing this. It was hard for me to relate to air quality.
Lost your video. There you go.
Yeah, sorry.
Nope,
The call came in. So anyway, it's like, I liked what I was doing, but I didn't love what I was doing.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, I was doing some reflection, and it was the more tangible thing of something that I could touch versus working on air quality. And so I approached my boss and actually wrote a memo way back when we used to write memos to do anything, and said, hey, if I can volunteer, I'll work a couple of extra hours a week if I can start on recycling during the workday. I'll do extra time on my own during my alternative fuel vehicle program work. And it just so happened that my boss's secretary had read that memo and then got temporarily assigned to go work for the new deputy executive director of TxDOT, who happened to say, what do we do about recycling around here?
Mm.
And my boss's secretary said, well, Rebecca Davio wants to do that. And so I got to go have an audience with the deputy executive director of TxDOT and go make a pitch. And I all of a sudden had a position and an employee and the license to go do anything that I wanted.
So
And
don't be afraid.
she,
Don't be afraid to try something new, right?
don't be afraid to put your hand up and say, can I try this? Can I do this on the side? Can I work on this? I'm interested in this. Because that was really a life-changing memo for me, to be able to have that opportunity.
Right.
And, you know, the deputy executive director did not intend to, she did not say, well, go do anything you want. But the other things that I had learned throughout my career and my undergraduate degree and my master's studies, budgeting, and those things that weren't quite as fun and interesting, helped me make reasonable pitches for, let's do this. You know, can we try this? And so it just opened up a whole new possibility. And learning about TxDOT's research program, and the, you know, the federal government, the Federal Highway Administration wanted to learn about new, different, innovative things and ideas and materials. Mm-hmm. And that was just fascinating to me.
That's an excellent story.
And even though I'm not an engineer, I got to interact with engineers all over the state and understand a little bit about how they think. They wanted data to be able to, long before data was the thing, and everybody talked about data, it was still, they wanted to know, what were the test results? How was this material going to perform? How did the cost compare to the traditional materials that they were used to? That kind of thing. If I could give them that information, then they were willing to try.
Right. So a little bit of an aside. Do you think about data differently today than you did then? I mean, when someone talks to you about data, does it have a different sort of flavor to it today than back then? When you're saying back then, what would the year be?
I started doing recycling at TxDOT in '93, I believe.
That's you know, pretty long. I mean, that's close to 20.
Yeah, it's
30 years.
Yeah, it's a long time ago.
Yep.
And so data was not a term that I used at all.
Right.
And I would never have thought it then, but I'm a data junkie now. You know, it's like, I love data, and I realize I try and help folks that we work with now understand how important data is, and collecting good data and quality data, and helping the employees that are actually collecting that and maybe entering it into the system. You know, it's like, okay, that makes a huge difference, because now we can use that to make decisions and discover everything. And so now I talk about data all the time, when before I understood information and tangible, well-researched information was important. I never thought of it as data.
Yeah, because one thing, you know, when I think about, you know, those, you know, information back then, is you would collect data for whatever you were doing. You would complete that task and you'd set that data aside.
Right.
You know, you never said to yourself, we should keep collecting it. Never thought that, oh, maybe if I took this data and combined it with some other, that it could actually provide some insight or help. And now you sit down and you think about any instance, any set of circumstances that you want to monitor, and half of your conversation is, what's the data? What are we going to do with it? How are we going to use it? You know, how else can we use it? You know, I mean, the devices, the math that that will conduct the different sort of analyses on the data. I mean, it's just it's a completely different world, really. From, interestingly enough, though, your childhood memories are doing things to collect data.
Yes, absolutely. There's
You're still
a
doing it.
very interesting coincidence there. And, you know, it's why I love the civil engineering program that you've developed at Texas State. You know, it's like data driven engineering and decisions. And it's just, you know, that technology enhanced infrastructure is so smart because infrastructure is such a huge investment for governments, and to be able to know what's going on and to have it report, you know, I'm pavement and I'm cracking, you know, do something kind of thing. You know, vehicles that were heavier than what I'm designed for were rolling over me. And it's like, what an amazing, astounding place we are here in 2020.
Right. And kind of go back, what's always kind of gets to me is all of these issues existed years and years and years ago. And in a lot of ways, some of the technology existed years and years ago, but we never even thought, no one ever said years and years ago, hey, we should, right, why don't we do A and B and then watch what happens? It's like it never, for anybody that I know of, never had a conversation that even began with, yeah, we're thinking about doing this to watch something over a long period of time. Nothing. And now today, and so that's what kind of, I say to myself, how could we not have seen this? You know, because it was there, and we just didn't do it. We didn't do anything. You know, so it's I think a fun thing of time passing. Different events occur, just like you're writing that memo. Different events occur. They cause some other event to occur, and on and on and on. And those little small steps mean you've climbed a huge flight of stairs when it's all over and done with, and you're someplace completely different. But you can't see it when you get started, you know. So I think that's another interesting thing talking to you is you actually started someplace very interesting, and your path, you didn't even realize the path you were taking was still related to that starting point of data and studying and things like, you know, environment. And now today, that's what is that? Everything that you're doing is environmental data, right?
Yeah, and it's just as circuitous as my background is, the different places that I've worked, the different degrees. You know, you have engineering degrees, you have 3 degrees, probably all in engineering. And my degrees are almost as different as they could be. And yet every single one of those, I learned places, I learned things in those different degrees and in my very, very different jobs that helps me today. And nobody ever would have thought of created a path like that.
Yeah.
But it really works out perfect. And it's good to plan and think ahead, but don't get so wrapped up in it, has been what I'm learning. That it's like, okay, to understand what I'm interested in and the kinds of things that satisfy me and make it fun to go to work or fun to do the things that I'm doing. But, you know, it's like beyond that, just knowing those things helps so much, because it's like opportunities come along.
Sure. And I think, you know, in what we're talking about, there's a degree here of being willing to be patient, to let life take its path. You don't have to try to do something today. Don't be lazy, you know, but I mean, Um,
Right.
you were working hard. You were trying to do, you know, the best job you could do in the things that you were doing, but they just weren't really, you know, as fulfilling for you as you would have liked, and so you looked to do something else. But you couldn't have made that decision that they weren't fulfilling without going through that work and doing that work, you know. And so you don't just suddenly one day wake up and go, oh, I would like to, you know, figure out recycling for the DOT. These things
No,
take time to evolve.
exactly. And I say that sometimes the most painful, uncomfortable, unpleasant experiences offer the most profound learning opportunities, you know, because it's like I realize in one of my jobs that it's like I don't like this, you know. I called it behind the curtain, and I realized I'm an in front of the curtain person, you know. It's like I like that role of influencing people, not pulling the strings behind, you know, and getting everything set up. And it's like as you said, I never would have understood that without being in that position and going, you know, I don't like this. I don't enjoy this as much as I do other things.
Yeah.
And so there's value in every single opportunity. And as you said, be patient and look for, what am I supposed to be learning from this? You know, if it's uncomfortable, it probably means there's a learning opportunity here and I'm missing it. And COVID is actually giving us all, but giving me a real opportunity to think, okay, what am I supposed to be changing here and letting go of? And, you know, it's a time of profound change, not just in my personal life, but across the world. And so that's a good thing.
Yep. Well, and so here's a personal example for me, small. But I've done some searches on my computer for files that, you know, I've had for a long time. And sometimes I find them and sometimes I don't. But then when the search is done and it says that, you know, it's looked at 150,000 files or something like that, you know, and I go and you know, the other day I said to myself, and I was talking with my wife, I said, this is ridiculous. Why do I keep all of these things? An email, you know, email, the amount of email that is, you know, stored wherever it's stored that has my name attached to it is probably, you know, and I'm sure I'm not anywhere close to what it is for some people, but it's just ridiculous. You know, it's like, why, you know, and so it's times like now when you're a little bit of a moment here or there and you do something and you realize, why am I holding on to some of this stuff? You know, it's not important. And now the way things are stored in data centers, you're going to be able to get at it one way or another. Doesn't have to necessarily have to be on your desktop or on your hard drive or anything like that. So, so tell me a little bit about what you like to do spare time. So do you garden still? Do you do things like that?
I figure my dad would be very happy because I'm getting back into gardening. I've sort of been away from it for a while, but.
So is this sort of COVID related to do something around the house? Or were you thinking about?
Well, no. One of my other interests is doing real estate. And so I've done a couple of flip houses and or taken an older house and made it into a rental property. And so I just recently, or a couple of years ago now, moved to San Marcos and I bought an older house. And one of the reasons that there were two reasons why I bought it. One was the backyard and the trees and the stories about the previous owners having birds and enjoying them. And the other was that it was a 30-year-old house that probably hadn't had anything done to it in 30 years.
Okay.
And so I got to come through and put my mark on it and transform it. And
Cool.
so doing the landscape and having garden and is part of that evolution. And so it also comes from a desire to sort of live more healthy. I think that's a little bit of environmental roots,
Sure.
but it's also the realization that, you know, it's like eating vegetables is not only good for you, but really tasty. And so my parents would be so happy and so amazed to hear me say that, because they never knew me as a child that would eat vegetables at all.
Right. So how did you learn the flipping process, and and be comfortable with the risk and everything that's involved with that?
Like I've learned a lot of things, sort of just jump in and do it.
Okay.
I've been exposed a little bit to it, and then when I left the Texas Department of Public Safety, then one of my coworkers there and I actually did a flip house in Austin, and he was an experienced real estate investor, and I learned a lot from him. But some of it is you just got to get out there and make some mistakes and ask, and there are people that are willing to help you. And these days, YouTube can teach you everything.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's like just jump in and try.
So without being specific, has it been profitable for you? Say if you take all of them together, has it been profitable or break even, or it's been good?
I've been very fortunate that I've had positive experiences in real estate. I have tried to buy well, and I think it's much harder to do that, to make good decisions, good financial decisions, when it's the home that you're living in.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the place that I live in now. It's like, well, I've done a lot of things to fix it up because I wanted that in the home that I was living in.
Right.
And, you know, they always say never have the nicest home in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I won't claim that, but I'm approaching that with the, you know, all new windows, all new siding, all new, you know, gutted the house, that kind of thing.
May not look like it from the street. Because did you change the exterior at all, or is he left it basically?
I did.
Okay.
I put hardy panel all around, changed out all the windows, changed the design of the front, and I'm gonna do landscaping projects just like you.
Yep.
And so
you can hire me as a consultant if you would like.
Well, I like that idea. Except you said I couldn't afford you.
Well, we'll work something out.
You know, it's just, that's a deal. It's a very fun and rewarding experience, and I realized that that's one of the things that's really key to my happiness. And whether that's in the environmental arena, whether it's teaching students, whether it's working with clients or doing real estate, that it's taking something that's not in a very good state and making an improvement or a transformation on that. That's extremely satisfying to me. And with students, that they don't have to be in a bad state, but it's just teaching them something and helping them hopefully get a little bit more confidence and some more skills and that kind of thing. Yeah. So, you know, understanding that that's important to me, I think has made a big difference now in sort of how I think about my career and career decisions. And you can't know that when you're just starting out, right? Always, but I wish somebody would have told me that.
Well, let me ask you one last question, because we're a little bit over time, but that's fine. So you've done several things and a variety of things, and things that have been actual work related and more personal, you know, on the side. If you had to scrap all of them and you could only pick and do one, what would you do? Would you do a flipper? Would you stay as a teacher? Would you go back to to doing stuff like the environmental stuff with the DOT, or maybe something completely different? What would you, if you had to pick one thing from here to the end of your professional career, what do you think you'd pick?
Oh, I'm going to cheat, John.
Okay.
I would do transformation. And over the course of the years that I have left, that could be transformation in students, that could be transformation of real estate, that could be transformation of health. That's a big new interest for me. Transformation of workplaces or work environments, that kind of thing.
Right,
But
right.
the constant would be that transformation, taking something and making improvements. And it might just
cool.
be making some place that I live much more enjoyable for me and for my neighbors and friends and family.
So you're comfortable,
that would be it.
I think sort of to wrap this up, you're very comfortable with the change that would have to happen for you to have transformation be in different contexts. So if it was flipping houses, that would mean you'd have to focus on a certain, sort of life and professional career. But if it was education, it's a different transformation. So the theme is out there, but you're comfortable shifting your life in the background to wherever it would need to be to still be involved in transformation. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Absolutely. I've made some pretty big shifts in my life, and they've all been for the better. And trying to look at those as fun and exciting and opportunities and not be scared by them. That's what I'm trying to do with this COVID thing, is like, okay, this just means there's brand new opportunities out there. And I find that I'm much better initiating and leading change than I am having change done to me.
Well, then if we can solve the landscaping, I'll make suggestions, but then I'll step back and let you make the final call.
Okay. Well, I look forward to that opportunity, that discussion too.
Well, this was excellent. I really enjoyed it. And like I say to everybody that I talk to, 30 minutes goes by like nothing.
Yeah.
Because it's fun. And so, I mean, that's one of the things for me. I just really enjoy having these conversations with people, and I hope those that watch enjoy the things that we talk about. So I'll let you get back to the birds and the sounds in the sun there, and if there's a margarita in the future off camera, go and
over here.
Cheers to your margarita. So.
Well, John, thank you for the opportunity. It was great, and I applaud you for doing this. You have so many innovative ideas, and it's fun to get to go along with you on those.
Well, I hope people take something away somewhere along the line. My hope is somewhere along the line, somebody is going to watch one of these videos, and they're going to go, "Wow. That sounds like me," and it gives them something, and their life doesn't have to take the same path at all. But maybe they have something that helps them to make career choices, and it doesn't have to be, this isn't about engineering. It's just, those are the people that, that I'm talking to. I mean, like you said, you're not an engineer, but you're involved in the world, and so that's, if someone's life is improved by our conversation, then we really did something. So that's
yes,
what I'm hoping
absolutely.
For. So,
thank you for that.
Yep. All right.
Stay well.
Yep. You too. Have a good rest of the day.
Take care.